I'm Delia Chin, a recent law graduate from the Open University, and welcome to the Open Justice Centre podcast. In this episode, I'm joined by Gary Steele, a solicitor at Derbyshire Law Centre, who works across housing, discrimination, and employment law within the legal aid sector. Gary shares what it's like working on the front line of access to justice, from representing tenants facing eviction to navigating a system that doesn't always keep up with the realities that people face. We'll also explore his journey into law and his time at the OU shaped the lawyer he is today. This is an honest and insightful conversation about resilience, responsibility, and the real impact of legal work on people's lives. Before we get started, please introduce yourself and share a little bit about the work that you do.
I'm Gary Steele. I am a solicitor at Derbyshire Law Centre, and I deal with housing and discrimination and employment law, mainly in the areas of legal aid.
So, Gary, turning to your current role, what does a typical day look like for you?
So that's a bit of a difficult question because there are no typical days in the law centre. But if I give you, I'm going to perhaps go a bit further. If I give you my typical week, because it will ebb and flow. So on a Monday, I have housing appointments. So I have 3 housing appointments. We only represent tenants. So it's usually tenants who are coming in due to being evicted. So they will receive a notice seeking possession. So I have 3 appointments. They usually last between an hour and a half in the morning. Monday afternoon, it will be catching up on emails from the weekend because lots of things come in. On a Tuesday, we do a court duty scheme where I'm duty solicitor, so I will go to court, and all the people who have been evicted who haven't got solicitors will be able to see me, and I'll be able to go into court and represent them. Wednesday, I have a free day, and that's where I try and catch up on all my work. It never happens. I'm usually disturbed, but that's it. Wednesday's a day where I have nothing on, solely to do my work. And then Thursday, I do an outreach at a local authority. So I go to the outreach and I advise their clients. So homelessness clients I'll advise. And then on a Friday, I have discrimination and employment clients. And so again, I have 3 appointments in the morning. In the afternoon, I'm catching up on everything that I need to do. But if something urgent comes in, all that goes out of the window. So my job is very reactionary. I may have a schedule and I may have an average week, but I don't think I've ever worked where it's ever gone to plan. Something always happens.
I can imagine it's consistently changing not even week by week, day by day. How do you feel being that intermediary person between someone being homeless and having to represent them and support them through their journey? What keeps you balanced, Gary?
So I think when I first started, I tried to be everything to everybody, and that just doesn't work. So I know my role, legal advisor, and I stick to my, I stick to my role, because I could be social worker and I could be mum and I could be all these things, but that's not the best for my client. The best for my client is to be their solicitor and to advise them on the law. And I'm quite blunt when it comes to the law and my advice, especially in housing cases and evictions. The advice is usually black or white. There's no sort of middle ground. You've got a defence or you don't. That's how it is. But I try and stay in my own lane, because if I tried to be everything to everybody, I'd just fail, and I'd be busier than ever. And I have to keep reminding myself, I only have a law degree. I don't have a social work degree. I stay in my lane. But we're very lucky at the law centre. We've got a group of paralegals who do that work, who will then go and, set bank accounts up for the homeless people and try and get them white goods for when they move in and things like that. I'm giving them legal advice, and that's it.
So that's really interesting, Gary. You've highlighted how much sits behind the cases beyond the law itself. Do you feel that the law is actually keeping up with the realities that people are facing?
No, I don't. So we've got the new renters in housing. I'll stick to housing because employment's boring. Housing is the juicy, but format that's been implemented. So it comes in on 1st of May. And this changes all private rented sectors tenancies. So it gives them more rights. Before this, the last updated law that we had was in 1997. It was the 27th of February, 1997. To put it into context, Wannabe was number one on that day by the Spice Girls. Labour had just won their majority. No, they hadn't, because they won in the May. So we still had a Conservative government. We still had John Major as Prime Minister. That was the last time any tenancy rights were changed. So this law is well needed. I like the Renters Reform Bill. I think it does a lot, but I think it doesn't go far enough. I think that there's been a balance, but I think the balance, it doesn't benefit the tenants at that point. There's more to come. So if I give you an example, on the 1st of May, a landlord can't refuse unreasonably to let a property to somebody who has a pet, has a dog, let's say. So lots of tenants are going, I'm not a dog. I think it's a right. That's great. If the landlord refuses, the tenant then has to sue them. What tenant is going to sue them for a dog? I mean, it's just, it just doesn't go. Also, it's quite expensive to sue somebody, and legal aid that I work in will not cover us to sue them, to get an injunction for them to have a dog. The legal aid won't cover that. So it has moved with the times, but not enough. And one thing I do want to say is, I think if we take housing law out of it, I think the benefit system and the housing benefit system hasn't worked. So we have these rents, which are meant to be the average in the area. So I'm in Chesterfield.
Affordable rent scheme, is that?
Yeah. So it's what the government will pay towards the rent. So it's the housing element of universal credit. So the average rent is set based on number of bedrooms and the postcode it's in. The average rent in Chesterfield, where I'm based, is £380 per month. But you're going to try and find a one-bedroom property for £380 a month. You're not finding it. You're not. So that hasn't moved quick enough or far enough to keep up with the prices of the market, the rental market. So we're getting lots of clients where they will get the minimum that they can get from universal credit, but then they'll have like a perhaps £100-200 top up out of their benefits to then onto their rent, which leaves them short, which means that they don't then pay their rent, they get into rent arrears, and there's a big old cycle. And I can wax lyrical about this, so I'm going to stop because I'll just bore you.
Not at all, Gary. It's really interesting to hear your perspective of how current law isn't actually keeping up with the realities that people are facing. And obviously that the work that you're doing is just amazing.
Thank you. If I can sum it up, it's money talks, and the law may change, but if the money's not there, then it's not there. If there's minimum rents, but the landlords can charge 2-3 times over those, then
wow,
that's
that's quite significant. And then people obviously will find themselves in difficulties, and that's where you have to then step in and provide that support. That is really, really interesting. And moving on from that, how do you then, deal with the emotional weight of dealing with clients when they come to you with their housing problems? Like, personally, do you go home of an evening and stand in the corner for a minute?
I mean, so it's really difficult because we're at Derbyshire Law Centre, we're at the coalface. We see people in crisis. Many people will bury their heads in the sand and come to us 2 days before an eviction, and then we have to jump into action. We're at the coalface of and at crisis point. It's really difficult. I have to keep reminding myself that I'm a lawyer, I'm not a social worker, but it still does affect you. I think we have, in the office, it's a little bit like gallows humour. So we'll turn the tragic into funny, just to get through it. And that sometimes works. But I know that without being big-headed, I do a good job and I do my best. I do my absolute best for my clients. So that comforts me. But also, I haven't got blinkers on. I know that probably, to some extent, the reason the clients are coming to me is through their own fault as well. They need to take some of that responsibility, as well. I think we get the system is broken, but sometimes some clients make choices, and I tell them that I'm very blunt with that. I'm very blunt with, you made a choice not to pay your rent and buy a 50-inch TV. There's choices, but if you start with a foundation of inequality and you start with the foundation of the benefit system is perhaps just not fit for purpose, then obviously they're going to get into trouble. I've got a partner who I can speak to. I have friends. When I go home, I decompress, but I like to say to myself, I don't take it home, but I do. And I think about it and I think about the next day and I'll think about what's going to happen the next day. I think there's a realization that you can only do so much. Your client has to take a little bit of responsibility as well. You do get cases where life has just been terrible for certain clients and everything they've done has gone wrong and they've tried to do the best that they can possibly done and it's all gone wrong. And we have a wraparound service that can help with that. But the stress of it and the enormity of this is somebody's house does stay with you, but you just have to take a breath. And, you know, I don't drink, so I eat it. So I will have a big burger or...
Amazing. We all have our vices, Gary. That's brilliant. And you probably found this with your studies as well. You always have to find that balance no matter what you're going through, and you have that resilience. And would you say studying at the OU actually prepared you for working in housing law? Other than getting your degree, obviously.
Yeah, it did, because housing law isn't taught on any degree. It's a little bit of hidden law. So I went into it and had to stand on my own 2 feet and study housing law all over again. And my degree helped me do that, because during my degree, I was distance learning, I was at home, I had a life. So I had to stand on my own 2 feet then, and I had to have a bit of responsibility for my own time. So techniques I developed through my studies helped me in my practice. It just does. It makes me more self-sufficient. So rather than running to my supervisor and asking a question, I'll try and find the answer. I'll go with, this is what I think, is that right? And I developed that through my law degree, because I couldn't ring my tutor up every 5 minutes. I had a tutorial every month and I had emails, but I knew that they also had full-time jobs. So I knew that the book stopped with me, and that really helped me in my practice of law. It's made me really self-sufficient. I don't really go to people for help unless I'm sat here and thinking, I just don't know the answer.
Yeah, you find it yourself. I guess what you're talking about there is you have this intuition, this internal barometer that tells you, I know this and I'm capable of doing this. And then off you go and you proving yourself.
I've just been promoted to team leader, which is, well, the head of the employment and discrimination unit at Derbyshire Law Centre. So the book literally stops with me, which is very, very scary. But yeah, so that's relatively new. But again, I still think, so before we were saying I'm a week in and everything's piling up on me, and I'm a little bit, but I think my coping strategy is I'm very organised. I have really good time management, and that was developed through my degree. I knew when the tutor marked assessments had to be in. I knew when the exam was. I had a calendar that I stuck to, and these are all skills that have stayed with me throughout. So I know I will be fine because I have that foundation of time management and organisation. And also, I'm not scared to say, I don't know, and can you help? And I think that's something that the Open University installed into you, that you're not going to know because it's a degree and you don't know the answers. So ask for help if you need help. So I'm quite prepared to do that, but I never wanted to bother anybody. So I used to try and silence myself, if I'm honest. It's ebbs and flows, but a lot of the skills that I got through my degree absolutely have stayed with me.
That is brilliant. And leading on from that, is housing law where you saw yourself when you started your degree? Let's have a bit of your journey.
No. If I give you a bit of my background, I left school at 14. I've got no GCSEs or A-levels. At the age of 17, I met my partner, who I'm still with today, and he was studying law at the University of Nottingham. And one day, I just went into a lecture with him because we were going out for dinner afterwards, and I was like, I'm bored, so I went in. And I understood what the lecturer was saying to the students. I understood it, and I thought, if these people can do it...
This is the key question. What did you hear, Gary, that said, I can do this?
Yeah, so it was land law, and it was talking about ownership of property. So you can hold it as freehold, leasehold, common hold. And I understood it. I was like, wow, I get this. So I was like, if these can do it, I can do it. So let's have a go. So I went to the Open University and I signed up. I just turned 18. And I studied all on my own, by myself, didn't have any help from anybody, over 6 years. And the first 2 years, I absolutely bombed. I was getting thirds. And then we moved on to the more substance of the law degree. So it was like contract law and tort, and then trust and land. And I was getting really good marks. So in my head, it was always going to be criminal law. And then I studied criminal law, and I was like, no, this isn't for me. No, 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 no. So then it moved on to, I don't particularly care as long as I can practice law. Didn't care what area. I just knew that's what I wanted to do.
You had a love for the law.
Yeah. I always say I'm nosy, bit of a know-it-all, and I like a good argument. So the law was...
Great skills.
Yeah. So I got a job. Well, I volunteered at a barrister's chambers for a while. And then I was successful on their diversity access scholarship with the Law Society, and they paid for the LPC. So I did that, and then I got a job as a paralegal in family law in private practice, and I hated it. So I was giving up the law. I was a little bit bullied in the job, and I was giving up the law. I thought, this isn't for me. I'll go and do something else. Then I just applied for a paralegal job at Derbyshire Law Centre, where I am now, and got it. And then the rest is history. I've stayed here, and I've developed, and now I'm the head of the employment unit. So that's a bit scary, but it's been a journey. There's been no straight road. It's been a journey.
It's been an amazing journey, because here you are today with a promotion. Would you say that your skills of being quite direct helps you to advocate for people better? Because I have a feeling they are.
Yes.
This is your strength.
Yes. So I don't get hints. They go over my head. I am quite direct, and sometimes I'm offensive, and I don't mean to be. And it's all due to my autism. It's not that I'm nasty, but I was diagnosed late at the age of 35. I'd always masked because I sort of knew from an early age that I can't say that. And then when I got to 35 and I was diagnosed, I was a little bit like, I want people to like me or dislike me for who I am rather than the mask I put on. But yes, you're right. Being very direct. There's appointments with clients where I need to know 6 pieces of information to decide, and I get those 6 bits of information, and to some extent I don't care about anything else that the client's saying. That's 6 bits of information, the appointment's done. At court, absolutely. I'm not going to use 4 words when one will do. And I can be quite succinct. I can be quite sassy, which I need to work on. But yeah, I am quite direct.
Don't change, Gary.
No. And I think this is a thing that junior lawyers don't necessarily get. When you're talking to a judge, you can actually tell them they're wrong and challenge them in a respectful way. And actually, it's part of your job to do that if you think that they are incorrect. So you can have that backwards and forwards, provided you are always respectful. You can still disagree and you can still argue in a respectful way. And I do, because that's my job for my clients. But you're absolutely right. Being direct helps me, because it means that I don't need to spend 45 minutes hearing about a life story, because only the 15 minutes are worth my time, because that's the only information I need.
That is brilliant advice, Gary. Thank you. I feel like I've taken up so much of your time, because we're coming to the end of it now.
Worry.
What advice would you give to students who have autism, Gary, studying and going into law?
I think that because I was diagnosed late, I masked a lot. And people say, autism and neurodiversity is a bit of a superpower. I never saw it like that. Life is really difficult when you can't navigate it as well as other people.
Yes.
And you put a mask on and you're somebody else. So in general, as people with autism, ADHD, I would say, be truly yourself, be who you are. And if people don't like you, then that's on them. It's not on you, because you're being genuinely yourself. When it comes to studying, because it wasn't ever diagnosed, it was never an issue. It was just what it was. So, but working in discrimination law now, I understand that reasonable adjustments can You can ask for extensions. You need to share it. One of the things I always say to my clients is, if you don't tell people, they can't help you, and you're then part of the problem. So if you are struggling, go and talk to somebody, speak to the Open University. Their student services are really, really good. Go and talk to them. They will direct you in the best place. Ask for help. Don't struggle, because the playing field needs to be level. And if something needs to be put into place to level that playing field so you can get the best qualification that you can get, then that's what you need to do. And if you're too scared or you're too nervous to go and speak to the Open University about it, then you need to take a little bit of responsibility for what's happening, because you have to speak out. If they don't know, they can't help you. I understand that there's a fear. I understand that there is still a stigma. But the Open University isn't a normal university, and I use normal in inverted commas. It's not a regular university. They are special, the Open University. They are brilliant. Due to the way that they are formed and what they do, everything is on the table. There's no stigma. It's all on the table, and they truly want you to help. They truly want you to flourish and to get the best qualification you can get. What I was taught in criminal law, when you're with the police, if in doubt, say nothing. I'm going to give the opposite advice. If in doubt, speak to the Open University, because they will help and they can help. And also you can come and speak to me, because I'm a discrimination solicitor, and I'll just sue them if they say no.
That is brilliant, Gary. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Your story is so inspiring. It's so heartwarming to hear about your late diagnosis and how it didn't impact your learning and you still kept going for it.
Be 100% yourself. Don't take no for an answer, and you'll get far in life.
That is brilliant advice. I remember watching one of your previous interviews where you spoke about being taken into a room and this senior lawyer telling you, because you've come from the OU, you're not going to be a success. And here you are, a success in yourself, newly promoted.
Yeah.
How does it feel to say, told you?
Absolutely, I do. I'm waiting for the day that I can go and see that partner at court and I can win. I'm waiting for that day. We practice different areas of law, but I'm still waiting for that day.
Brilliant.
It will come.
That day is coming. You're manifesting it, Gary. Any day now.
Yes.
That is brilliant. That was Gary sharing his inspiring journey into law and the realities at the front line of social welfare cases. Gary's story highlights that resilience isn't perfection. It's persistence. It's about backing yourself when others don't and refusing to let stigma dictate your future. This strength is reflected in the clarity he brings to the people he represents every single day. As Gary said, don't let anyone tell you what you're capable of. Thank you for listening. We hope to see you again at the Open Justice Centre podcast.